All right, let's get right into it because we do have Bryant from Legal Rideshare coming on. Again, if you guys are in an accident or anything, make sure you take down the phone number that is in the description for Legal Rideshare. They will be your representative, as well as helping you through any type of accident, especially when on, delivery, when on a rideshare ride, e-scooter, all of that good stuff. So make sure you do that. And again, I'm going to say a reminder. Make sure you check out our other videos where Bryant was on as a guest. It's going to go back a little bit because he was on maybe about a year ago at this time. But we had the whole breakdown of what you should do in an accident, the steps that you need to take. So it's good information there. So Bryant, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah, I finally got the camera to work. We're having some technical.
well,
Yeah,
I'm
I
thinking,
see.
you don't have tech support back there? Uh,
Apologize up a little bit. I'm using my phone.
no, it's all good. Actually, this is so timely that you're able to make it to this episode. Because with a lot of the changes that we're going through as drivers, right? I mean, our major concern obviously is getting into a crash, our fault or not. But who better than you to explain to our audience and thousands watching later about those things? But one thing I want to get right off the bat, okay? I have seen personally in California my commercial insurance rates that Uber charges, because they're a TNC by law, they have to have that coverage. It used to be 0 to 10, then went to 20 cap, and as of last week, I started getting some 30s now, really right at top at the $30 for a 1 hour trip. And here's a couple of screenshots: 43 miles, an hour and 48 minutes. If you skip one, Chris, we'll see the amount charged. And here it is, $29.54 for that. Other expenses such as commercial insurance, commercial auto insurance, I have checked with Uber. They're saying there are only two items in there: credit card fees, and because this was not an airport trip, credit and airport fees already up there as a line item. They're saying credit card fees, I'm assuming about 3%. All of the rest is commercial insurance, Brian, right? And they're directly blaming personal injury lawyers having a field day with Uber when they get in an accident. And what is happening, though, is that when the commercial insurance goes up to $30 now per trip, I mean, per trip, this is like ridiculous. What happens is that the money we're making is going down. I mean, I definitely believe that whatever they're charging the booking fee to the customer is being lumped in there, but I'm going to go into my rabbit hole and figure that out. So with that said, do you take any responsibility for our commercial rates going up?
Absolutely not. I think
Okay.
that to be held accountable for accidents and injuries that they cause. And that's Uber. That's not the driver. This is a cost of their business model. And it's not your fault as a driver that their business model is flawed and that they got a free pass for more than a decade in terms of the business expenses that everybody else in the country has to pay. So what we've seen throughout the years is that more and more the drivers and the customers are getting screwed because Uber doesn't want to pay its fair share. So every other company that puts vehicles on the roadway, whether it's UPS, FedEx, taxi companies, you name it, they have insurance costs and they've built those insurance costs into their business model. Uber's now figuring out that this stuff is expensive. They don't want to cut into their profits, so they're passing it along.
Yep, that's what I see happening. And you know, unfortunately, I mean, the sky's the limit, it looks like, because $30 for a single trip, as a driver, I could probably get my own insurance and then save some money and then collect that money. But that's not the point. So let's get right into it. First of all, I get the 2,000 emails now. I was up to 1,500, now I get 2,000 emails, and I respond like I know what the other side knows that I know. So I go, well, in P2 you have this, and then they come back, what is P2? I'm like, how do you not know that? But then I go, okay, not everybody knows that. So let's educate our crowd. There's 4 periods of a rideshare driver or our lives under insurance. Period 0, which is P0, period 1, period 2, period 3, which I call P0, P1, P2, P3. Can you please explain to us each individually what those periods are?
Sure, absolutely. So period 0 would be when you're just using the vehicle for your own personal purposes. You're picking your kid up from school and driving to soccer practice. That's P0. Your own personal insurance is going to cover you. Period 1 is when you've got the app on and you're cruising around waiting to connect with a fare. Period 2, you've connected with a fare and you're on the way to pick them up. And period 3, you've got the passenger in your car. You're on the way to the destination.
Right. So these are pretty self-explanatory, right? However, when I do dig deep into my waybill sometimes, or in the app to look at what coverages, because a lot of people are assuming that, they just see for $1 million liability insurance, they're assuming, I'm pretty sure they're assuming that for all those periods, that $1 million coverage applies. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
Well, it's correct that everybody assumes that, and it's incorrect. So the biggest misconception is that there is ample insurance in every single Uber ride. Really, more often than not, there's not enough insurance. That $1 million policy that you're seeing applies to period 3 and period 2 liability coverage. So what is liability coverage? That means if you cause an accident and injure someone else, that injured person can tap into $1 million worth of insurance. What that $1 million does not cover is an injury to you or an injury to a passenger that somebody else causes. So you're driving down the street, somebody rear ends you, you and your passenger are both injured in that crash. You don't have $1 million of coverage. You've really got whatever that schmo that hit you has on his policy, plus maybe a couple bucks in underinsured motorist coverage from Uber. It's not $1 million.
It's not $1 million. Okay, so that's pretty clear. Now, I know you're in Chicago, so you can speak for that, but I'm pretty sure you're aware of a lot of different states, what the coverages are. But obviously we can get into all states, but let's just talk about Chicago, right? So what do you know what the driver coverage is from Uber or Lyft, because they're practically the same. Let's talk about Uber for P1. What is the driver covered for under period 1, which is, like you said, app is on, I may be driving, I may be parked, whatever.
Right. So period 1, what you need to understand is there's different things that we talk about when we talk about insurance. We can talk about property damage, which is very important for an Uber or Lyft driver because your vehicle is your income. There's also what's called liability coverage, and then there's called underinsured / uninsured motorist coverage. These are 3 totally different coverages that apply to different situations and provide benefits to the drivers depending on what happened. So in period 1, you're extremely limited. You have limited access to property damage coverage, meaning if somebody causes damage to your vehicle, or if you cause damage to your vehicle, you're probably not going to get that covered by Uber. You're going to have to go through your own personal insurance. Chances are, if they find out that you've been doing rideshare, they're not going to cover it. So if you are involved in an accident where you cause injury to somebody, Uber's going to say, we're in period 1, therefore you got to first go to your personal insurance and see if they cover it. And even then, we've got limited coverage, about $25,000. And then when we talk about the underinsured motorist coverage, which means somebody rear ends you who doesn't have insurance, or somebody flees the scene and you can't identify them, you're not covered in that scenario in period 1. So.
Yeah. And this is all with the $2,500 deductible, by the way. If there is damage, and let's not forget about the $2,500, right?
That's right. So the $2,500 deductible shocks everybody when they first find out about it. What we're talking about there is if there's damage to your vehicle and Uber does cover it, you still have to meet a $2,500 deductible, meaning if there's less than $2,500 of damage to your car, Uber's not paying anything. And if there's more than $2,500, they're only paying what's on top of it. You've got to get to that first $2,500 before they'll chip in.
Yep. So that's period 1. So let's go to period 2, get to period 2, which is, I accepted a ping or a request. I'm on my way to the passenger, right? This has become, this part really is tricky because I know, you're aware I sent you a poor driver's problem, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And so what is my coverage in period 2? I'm a Chicago driver. What is my coverage from Uber under period 2?
Yeah, so in that scenario, it's the same situation for the property damage. You've got the $2,500. And I really want to stress this before I go on a slight tangent here, that Uber's only going to pay for your property damage if you have the correct coverage on your own personal policy. So if you've taken out only collision coverage or only liability coverage and not collision coverage, Uber's never, ever, ever going to fix your car because you didn't take out a policy that would cover your car to begin with. That's a threshold. So please take out collision coverage, take out coverage for your own vehicle on your car. Back to your question. When we're talking about the coverage that's available for underinsured motorists, which is when, again, hit and run, other person's not covered, you've only got $50,000 of coverage there. The liability is $1 million, but that's for damage that you cover or that you caused to someone else.
Okay.
Or you don't do that ever.
So let's say, I sent you that, and I remember like yesterday, it was a couple of weeks ago, and some driver sent me the dash cam video of him getting T-boned, right? And I think he's in Texas, and he says, "Serge, I have medical bills. I'm crippled. My car is trashed, and it was a hit and run. It was uninsured motorist, and Uber is not paying. My insurance company is not touching. I'm screwed." So let's talk a little bit about that, if you recall that situation.
I do, and he couldn't have said it better. He's screwed. There's not coverage for that event in Texas. So when there's certain states here, Texas is one of them, Indiana is one of them. There's several around that don't require underinsured and uninsured motorist coverage. That means a lot of drivers in various states are driving around without coverage, without protection, if somebody causes injury to them and then flees the scene, or if somebody causes injury to them and hasn't paid their premium and their insurance is lapsed. There's a lot of vulnerability out there, and Uber and Lyft are not doing anything to protect the driver from it.
Yep, and I became aware of that lately, and I'm getting these emails saying, "Sergio, I have no coverage." I'm going like, "How do you not have coverage? I didn't even know it." So let's talk a little bit of a couple of minutes about P3, and then we'll get into other subjects. So I picked the passenger up. I'm on my way to the destination. What is my coverage with what Uber is providing?
Got $1 million of liability coverage. Again, not for you. You got $250,000 of underinsured, uninsured motorists in Chicago. And then it's the same property damage information that we talked about before, $2,500 deductible.
Yeah. So when you say not for you, so does it matter if Uber will cover you or not, if it's your fault or the other party's fault? Does that come into play?
It does. So if it's your fault, Uber's auto insurance and Lyft's auto insurance typically will not provide any sort of injury protection or wage protection for you. And that's pretty standard in any auto claim, whether you're driving for Uber or personal. If you are at fault, you don't get to tap into those auto insurance policies.
Okay. Now, a lot of people that email me, I tell them, look, you have no coverage literally on P1 or period 1 while you're waiting for a ping or driving around or repositioning yourself, because a lot of people, look, if I drop somebody off in the middle of the nowhere, right, and there's not going to be a request there, I have to drive back with my app on, hoping to catch a trip, right, going somewhere. And I'm practically going to assume that I'm not even covered during P1. What can drivers do? Could they buy supplemental insurance? Could they buy rideshare insurance? What should they do?
Yeah, they can and they should. So most big insurance companies now, the Allstates, the Progressives, the State Farms, they offer rideshare specific policies for rideshare drivers and gig workers. And a lot of drivers are hesitant to, one, tell their insurance company that they're doing the work. We've got to get rid of that stigma. It should be the first thing that you say when you're buying insurance. I'm a rideshare driver. I need protection, which includes gap coverage, includes UM, UIM. I want to opt into everything that I can. And you also want to shop around. You need to consider this as a business expense for the business that you're running as an independent contractor. Going through the process of finding the right insurance policy is something that's very important to your livelihood, and when something inevitably does happen, your protection.
Yeah, I mean, I do hear quite a bit of pushback on that because, as you know, 80%, according to Uber, 80% of drivers are part-time, right? If I'm driving like 10 hours a week, they're going to go, because I live in California. My insurance just went up 35%, like literally last week, right? I received my bill and I'm like, what the hell? So not the point though. The point is I could have bought really cheap, cheap compared to my overall policy, a supplemental, rideshare insurance policy from the same company that I'm insured by. Now it's like out of control, right? So a lot of people are going to say, well, I only drive 10 hours a week. I mean, you know, I'm not making any money anyway. I'm just trying to make a couple $100 here. Why should I pay for that, you know, for that supplemental insurance? What do you say to those people?
I say that if you're going to engage in rideshare and gig work, you need to protect yourself, because the more time you spend on the road, even if it's an additional 10 hours a week, the more likely you are to be involved in an accident. And when push comes to shove and you find yourself with medical bills, lost wages, unable to keep a roof over your head, you want to be able to tap into insurance that's going to cover you. And you don't want to find yourself realizing that you didn't take the steps that you need to put yourself in the best position to keep that roof over your head, to maintain your livelihood, and to get yourself back on the road again.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. For a few minutes, let's talk a little bit about, because we do also have an audience that are delivery drivers, right? Now, I think they're completely screwed because I don't think they have any coverage whatsoever. Am I right or wrong about this?
So Uber does provide coverage for its drivers. It's at a lesser rate sometimes, or lesser coverage than it provides to the Uber rideshare drivers, but there is coverage there.
Okay.
Start looking at some of the other companies, it's really shoddy. And we've seen state by state it vary quite a bit. In some situations, there's zero coverage. And in some states, they do, the states require minimum policies. So, as you know, by and large, I think you're right that the delivery workers are worse off, but it depends on their state, just how bad.
Yeah, we're talking about DoorDash and all the other gig companies, right? And I have read quite a bit of their policies in a couple of different states. It's shocking, the difference in coverage. And sometimes there's absolutely no coverage, because there was in the news, there was this lady who was doing part-time DoorDash and she trashed her car, ended up with a $25,000 bill, and then she's not covered. She figured, oh, I thought DoorDash was going to cover me. No, nobody's going to cover you. But so what would you suggest to our audience now and later? First of all, if they don't have supplemental rideshare insurance, they should go shop for it and definitely get one, right? That's one.
Absolutely. That's the number one thing. I always tell people there's two things: buy a dash cam and buy the right insurance. Those are the two baseline items to running this business.
Yep. And the second thing that I think is quite necessary is Uber obviously doesn't make this easy, okay? Because I had a great conversation yesterday with a group of drivers online, actually, and they asked me this question, and I told them what it is. But then I went and checked in my app. It's not even in my app. I have to go to the Uber website and fish this around. This is like a very important thing. I mean, the full-time driver is driving 5,000-6,000 miles a month. It's not a matter of, you know, if, it's a matter of when you're going to get an offender bender, your fault or not. They don't make this available. How should they? I mean, should this be like law that these people need to tell you when you're signing on? Like, you're a new driver, right? Yeah, you just want to happy-go-lucky. You just uploaded your insurance documents, your driver's license, your registration, went through your background check, you're on the road, right? But you have no clue. Should the legislators like make this actually a law saying that Uber has to declare or clarify exactly where this coverage is and what you're covered for?
Yeah, I don't even think we should stop there. I think there should be some mandatory coursework that everyone who wants to drive for Uber and Lyft should have to go through. And I'm not trying to make this a tedious process for the driver. I know time is, but these things are so complicated and they're so buried on Uber's website, and they're not explained in any sort of, regular terms, that even if Uber were to say, oh, hey, by the way, you've only got X amount of UIM coverage, people who don't deal with that every day aren't really. So I want to see coursework videos that really explain the risks of the work, that explain the coverages that are available for each driver in every state, and then offer resources for drivers who want more. When you talk about the legislature, what I want to see is higher minimums of what's required for Uber and Lyft to provide. I don't any scenario where a driver gets an offender bender, can't afford to fix his or her car, and then finds themselves homeless because they can't pay the bills. I don't want there to be a scenario where a driver gets injured on the job, has a $5,000 ER bill, and is paying that bill off for the next 5 years. That just shouldn't happen, and that's where the legislature comes in. I think it's on the rideshare companies to educate, and that should be something that they pride themselves in, to make sure that they've got an educated working class who understands what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, and the other thing is that may actually help with a lot of markets, because I know from my markets are extremely oversaturated. There's 8 Ubers and 8 Lyfts idling at every corner, right, of LA. And so when I look at that, I mean, if as Uber, instead of onboarding all you can as fast as you can, if you told some of these part-timers, like a 3-hour a week driving soccer mom, and they have a house, maybe they will not onboard and drive Uber, because the risks are immense, right? If you get in a fender bender. So I think that may help in that subject as well. So we have like a few more minutes. There was a question that I wanted to put up. Can you put that up, Chris? Yeah. So if we're registered as an LLC with the platforms, would that shield us in the case of any personal liability? Sergio, is this an option to register an entity instead of an individual?
So I need to first state that this question is it's a tad outside my area. It's more
Okay.
and business entity. I can tell you that a lot of drivers do take the step of forming an LLC, and the purpose of an LLC is to shield from personal liability. In this scenario, I think what would likely be the question to ask is, where does the insurance where does the insurance follow? Does it follow you as a person or you as an LLC? Because these are all insurance claims. More often than not, lawyers like myself are looking for insurance policies as opposed to, hey, driver Joe, we're going to take your house. We want to see, where's the coverage, who's it registered to, where's that claim going to be filed, what's the lawsuit going to be seeking, and hopefully there's a higher level of insurance that Uber and Lyft are providing above the driver's personal insurance policy that we can then go tap into as well.
Okay, another question. What does Uber's optional insurance cover? I opted at 3 cents per mile. I think that is for disability, but maybe Bryant knows about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I actually just dealt with that before I signed on. So
Okay.
As this 2 or 3 cent policy that you can tap into, it is money well spent. It doesn't really make any significant difference in your take-home pay, and it provides coverage for you in the event of an injury on the job. And it's not just car accidents. I've been working with people who have slips and falls as they've been delivering food, or
Yep.
helping. I had a client who was helping an elderly woman get out of the car. They both happened to fall because they lost their balance. He hurt his shoulder. That provided coverage, paid for medical bills, paid for lost income. It is, it's not perfect insurance, but it's the closest thing to workers' compensation that's available in the rideshare and gig world, and I highly recommend it.
Okay. Oh, there's another one. Here's my question for him. If I have my own, this question is coming up every single day, because Brian, now my cap is at 30. I'm actually thinking of getting my own commercial insurance and collect all that booking fee that Uber is charging the passenger, because literally all they're doing is they're passing the buck on anyway. It's not like, I've heard nothing but, I deal with these companies all the time, and I heard nothing but complaining. Oh, boo-hoo-hoo, our rates are going up, those damn PI lawyers, ambulance chasers. I'm like, bro, it's your business. How about my insurance, Uber? My insurance just went up 35%. Should I send you a letter tomorrow saying, boo-hoo-hoo, my insurance went up, pay me some more? That's not going to work. Anyway, here's my question. If I have my own commercial auto insurance policy, shouldn't Uber and Lyft both giving me back what they charge a rider for commercial insurance? Very valid question, and I think they should.
Yeah, I think that goes again to the flawed business model. So if a driver can show that they have adequate insurance, there's no reason that we should be double dipping. That they should pay once for insurance as long as it's quote unquote adequate. Most drivers who come to this business take out non-commercial, much smaller policies. And we do want Uber to be providing coverage for if that driver injures someone else, or if that driver gets injured at the fault of someone else. We want to see much higher thresholds of insurance. So if, like the individual who asked the question, if you can submit a document that Uber has a way of verifying is current and is going to stay current, that provides the same level of insurance, then sure, why not? I don't think they should charging you twice. But
I think they'll make more money. I mean, if you're a full-time driver and you're doing 150 trips a week, right? And Uber minimums now, I know from California, is $3 minimum. I think it's 30 cap now on the upside. Even if I average like $5 commercial insurance per trip, right? And by the way, I'm digging deep on this, Brian, because I think Uber is buying insurance bulk and selling it to the drivers. I honestly do. I think there is not a chance that Uber at its size, right? I mean, we did like a back of the envelope calculation. Uber is doing 10 billion trips a year on the minimum, even if this was $3, which is in LA or California, is $3 on the minimum for commercial insurance per trip, right? $30 billion they're collecting in premiums. I mean, are you guys telling me that they're paying the insurance companies $30 billion in premiums? Billion with a B.
That seems expensive.
That seems, oh yeah, for a company that buys in bulk, right? How do you opt into this occupational hazard insurance? I think it's in your app automatically. You just go say optional insurance and accept, and then they start deducting it from each trip.
That's my
so okay, few minutes. I know you got to go, but give our audience some really great advice. I mean, you're always great when you come on. You're full of information. They can reach you, by the way, if any of you need his services. He knows. Okay, if you're going to hire a lawyer, first of all, and you get in a fender bender or crash, your fault not. Obviously, we recommend dash cams. That makes his life a lot easier. But in the show notes, all his links are there. If you need to get in touch with Brian, feel free to do so. But I always send him my headaches anyway. So, but don't just send him questions to ask. Send them to me, Sergio at RideShareGuy.com. I'll forward it to him. So give us some advice, Brian. What are we supposed to do? We're doing rideshare. We're making less and less money. You know, Uber is crying on one corner saying, boo, our insurance rates are going up. And that's all. I'm like, okay. And what should we do? Are we supposed to quit doing rideshare? What are we doing?
No, you continue to do rideshare, but what I think a lot of people struggle with is how to take back what's their own. So when we talk about accidents and injuries in the rideshare world, many drivers are scared to make their own claims. They're afraid that, they get injured on the job, they make a claim to Uber, they're going to get deactivated. It's just not how it works. There is insurance here that protects you if you get injured while you're working. My firm helps you collect that money to pay for the medical bills, to cover your lost wages, to cover your pain and suffering. You can't be afraid to take what is owed to you. And that's what we help drivers do. We help collect the portion of the pie that's theirs, that they're entitled to. We're not going out, we're not trying to, take something from Uber that drivers are not entitled to, that they didn't pay for in their $30 per trip. You're paying for insurance coverage and we're helping you collect it. So if something happens, if you find yourself injured, give us a call and let us fight for you to collect what's yours.
Okay, well said. I mean, I can spend another 2 hours with you, obviously, but you have other work to do. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. We'll periodically do these, obviously. It's an important subject. It really is, because at this point, I feel like I'm completely getting screwed. I mean, if I'm being, from my fares, on my receipt, I see a $30 for an hour and a half trip. That's 40 miles. That's like what, 80, 90 cents a mile? Is that the best Uber can do with all their, buying power? And I'm like, passenger is paying. I'm getting, the double dipping going on. I'm not making any money. The fares are down anyway. So to me, it's like, and with the 2,500 deductible, I feel like I'm completely getting bamboozled here. So I don't know, but I appreciate it. I got one more question. Last question. Sorry. You're supposed to have a license to sell insurance. Does Uber have a license to? We can talk about that. I'll answer that question. That's not Brian's area. Uber is actually, Brian, I listened to the last conference call, their CFO said their risk assessment teams are looking into going more in-house coverage. So they can collect that 30 and put it in their pocket if nothing happens in that, as opposed to paying a third party a premium. And that could be another profit center probably for them, but that's not your area. So thank you, man. Thank you for coming on. Always great information. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the invite and the platform here. So if anybody has any questions, please do not hesitate to visit us at LegalRideshare.com.
Yeah, please do. And Brian is excellent in getting back. I mean, I will email him something, a case. He can be like 2 minutes later. I'm like, what is this? What is happening here? So he's very good at what he does, and he knows how to deal with the rideshare companies, more importantly. So thank you, Brian. Much appreciated.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right. Thanks, Brent. Have a good one. All right. So yes, again, if you're looking for any help, make sure you take the number that is in the description, put it in your phone, and in the event that something happens, use that phone number. And again, go back to our previous video where it's going to give you the steps to break down what you should do in the event of an accident. So then that way it's going to give you the best chances when it comes to any type of claims or anything like that. All right. Thanks for watching. That short little clip was from our live stream, Show Me the Money Club with Sergio and myself, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you subscribe, turn on all notifications so you get notified when we go live, as well as all of our awesome content. Make sure to check out this video right here, which will take you to the entire live stream, or check out this video right there. All right, drive smart, everyone.